Hi, everyone. I'm Lenny Pinna, and I'm the editor of this book, A Face from Uranus, Correspondence between Tedd Burr and Henry Bellamann, 1943 to 1945. I'm also the screenwriter and actor for the 6-part limited TV series In the Name of Jamie Wakefield.
I'm Diczhazy, and I am the marketing PR person for Ecclesia Arts, and I am also the editor of In the Name of Jamie Wakefield, which was released here on YouTube on October 27th. And since the release date, we've had a lot of interesting questions from both our friends and our audience here on YouTube. And we actually wanted to sit down with you for a little Q&A so that Lenny could talk about some of the questions people are asking about not only what comes next, but kind of the process that you went through with the whole series.
Well, I'm going to start with, because we did a Q&A where I talked about how we arrived at the way we did it, but I didn't really talk about as much about the intention. The intention for putting the series pilot on YouTube, which is quite an unusual and quite an extraordinary thing to do, I think, was that typically one sends out a script to producers to consider. In this case, the script is kind of complex because it's following two different characters as their lives are separate and they start to come together and meld. And because there's also some imaginative scenes and flashbacks, the structure is a little non-traditional. And I thought one way of making it more clear is by actually showing the dramatization of that pilot, both with me acting and reading the stage narration. And there was two reasons for doing that. One is, obviously, I want producers to be able to get a good imaginary version in their head of what it could be by what I suggested. And the second is, if I wait for a production company to do a full series, that means all of you would have to wait a long time before you'd even know the story. So I thought, life is short. And the thing I can do right now is at least tell the story, the beginning of the story, the pilot, right now. And that's what I shared on YouTube. And that's what, so far at least 3,000 people have had a chance to look at and experience. That wouldn't have happened had I not put it on that way.
Exactly. And the difference between the paper script and what you just did is you brought the characters to life.
And because you read the whole series.
Exactly. I did. And what's nice is even when I read the pilot, once Lenny had actually done the series, I gained so much more insight. So just for me personally, I understand how you as the viewer are getting so much more by seeing Lenny do all of these characters, which were absolutely incredible.
And, the reason I did the whole thing myself, acting all the parts, was also twofold. One is it would take a lot more time to cast actors and do locations and all kinds of things. But the other thing is that would also start to indicate a way to do it with actors that would influence producers. And what I didn't want to do is influence a producer as to how to do it. I wanted them to hear me as a storyteller, the story that I created. I would tell the story in my own way by playing all the parts so that it would limit it to being my perspective, and they could then imagine it in their way. Go, oh, I can see in 1943 where we could have this scene, we could have these actors doing this. It would give them the chance to imagine it, but I wanted to give a nutshell version.
Exactly. And what's really interesting now, because a lot of you have been asking, like, what happens next?
Yes.
And what I find interesting is actually the pilot was originally going to be a reading. Lenny was going to do it as a reading, but because of the way the pilot was structured, after going through the script, you actually said, you know what, I think I can play all of these characters myself, which was a feat. It was definitely a very large challenge, which you accomplished very well. But then a lot of people are now asking, well, can you do the same thing for episode 2, which that's a really big feat. But there's a way that Lenny can do it that makes sense.
So for all of you who've seen the pilot and are curious, I know we've heard people are curious about what's next. I feel like I can go on and start going into episode 2. But the thing is, I don't actually want to produce it the same way for two reasons. One is you wouldn't see me for 5 or 6 weeks because, or maybe even more, because I'd have to develop all of that again.
Yeah.
But that would be saying that I want to do it all myself, and I really don't. What I really want to do is, though, tell the story. So I think I'm going to, now that the pilot's out and you got the beginning of the story, I think I can go on and actually do readings, true readings, like I did random readings or dramatic readings of segments, maybe 10-minute segments, and in a way that you could digest the following of the story piece by piece by piece. So I'm kind of contemplating doing maybe a weekly video in which I would do a 10-minute segment of episode 2 and continue. It would also give me an opportunity to maybe questions come up, talk around that segment a little bit, so you can get more information. So it's a little bit more of an in-depth look at the process while I'm reading, but I won't be wearing costumes and makeup and changing locales. That was a one-time thing. I'm really hoping that it will be producers that will see that, and maybe even some of my continued readings, and say, aha, I think we can actually see what we could do with this.
Exactly.
Now, in order to achieve that is something that Bonnie has really helped with, because with producers, you really need to give them, like, especially nowadays, a digital package, a kit. And this is what Bonnie has created for In the Name of Jamie Wakefield.
So what we did is we created a website called inthenameofjamiewakefield.com. And on this website, what we built is an entire press kit of the entire project. From last June, when we did documentary style presentation of all really 23 years of what you've been doing. Tedd's movie that Lenny did, in 2001, Letters to Uranus, The Hidden Life. No. Letters to Uranus. Even me.
We always get confused with A Face from Uranus, the book. Letters to Uranus, the docudrama.
Letters to Uranus, The Hidden Life of Tedd Burr was the original movie.
Yes, that started the whole thing.
Yes. And I think what I love about the website now is everything is under one umbrella in terms of the marketing, because this is not an easy project sometimes to understand. It takes a lot of little pieces, parts, putting them all together, because it spans such a long period of time for Lenny. I mean, 23 years you've been working on this, and it was the film, the book, and the TV series. And we keep talking about that a lot in our presentations and our Q&As, is this 3-part. And we did call it the past, the present, and the future. Well, the future is now the present.
That's right. We're in the present of creating each future moment.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think what's neat, and it's funny because I just had this thought while I was thinking, while we were talking, what's interesting is I really think that episode 2 is going to be so much more vibrant as a reading, having been able to experience episode 1 the way you did it. Like, if you had just done episode 1 as a reading, then episode 2, I don't think people would have really felt the characters.
Right.
But if you go ahead and watch, it's long. It's an hour and a half long pilot.
It's a pilot.
Exactly. But there is so much depth and wonderful storytelling and characterization and Lenny's brilliant acting in this hour and a half long pilot. Once you get done with that pilot, you are going to be ready then for episode 2.
Yeah, so when
it's
I read
all going
it,
to make sense then.
Yeah, you can imagine the characters that you've already been introduced to as they continue, because you're going to have that playing on in your mind. Right?
Exactly. So that's what I was kind of thinking about. Watching that pilot first is going to set the characters up in your head a little bit, so you understand them, you know them, Tedd and Henry and some of the other supporting characters. So when Lenny's reading, you're going to understand the storyline a little bit better, which I'm excited. I'm excited about episode 2.
Yeah, she read it, so she's...
I already read it. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yes. But I also want to say, Bonnie really created the website as a real means of interesting a producer by giving them all of the information with trailers, with the pilot, all linkable, everything there. And I also want to say, for anyone that goes to the website to get more information that way, and I will say, we're doing our best to be sending out the emails with links to the website,
Yes.
to producers, agents, people in the industry. But I want you to know, I think that there's a multitude of ways in which things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, the fact that we have introduced this story to a lot more of you,
Mm-hmm.
that means any of you or any of the people subsequently that watch this pilot may just happen to know a person or a person who knows a person who's connected to a producer. So I want to say is, I feel that we've exponentially increase the chances
Mm-hmm.
of somebody knowing about this or encountering this who may be able to produce it someday as a fully realized series.
Mm-hmm.
It may actually come through one of you.
Exactly.
So I don't want to count that out.
Exactly.
And that's why I thought the more people
this.
that know the story,
Mm-hmm.
the better the chances. And I think it will also say something to a producer that if they see that on YouTube, a number of people have seen this, they'll already know that there's going to be interest. Mm-hmm. That's going to encourage them to even consider it more fully.
Exactly.
Saying some people have already really are into this and are enjoying it. So you have a part really by watching,
yes.
believe it or not, by watching, you already make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, who knows, by word of mouth, one of you may already be connected to somebody who knows somebody that could take a look at it.
And what's interesting to me is I've been in marketing for 20 years now. And one of the hard things, especially in this day and age, is that everyone has to move through channels to get things done. And unfortunately, the average person does have a hard time getting their work in front of producers because you have to either know somebody or go through a channel. And we're doing what I like to call, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Coal Miner's Daughter, Loretta Lynn. It kind of reminds me of something a little bit old world where she literally recorded a record, a 45, and then they drove around the country and delivered it to the radio stations. And I kind of feel like that's what Lenny and I are doing through a more sophisticated medium, obviously. But I feel like we're doing something really special and unusual and unique in that we're getting our work out on YouTube, but through, a little bit of a unconventional way because we don't have the means to get in front of Neil Patrick Harris right now. If anyone knows him,
we would like to
send his email along.
Or the top execs at Netflix,
exactly,
Paramount Plus, all of that.
And I truly believe when I got on board with this project back, actually it was a year ago. Lenny called me about 1 year ago, Thanksgiving, right before you headed to California for a little vacation. I remember you were going to California. I read the book, and I'd been familiar with the story, for a little, 20 years because I'd seen the movie previous to that. But when I read the book, I just went, oh my goodness, Lenny has got the most amazing story right here. I knew it the minute I literally almost stayed up all night reading this book. I was so taken by the book. And then when I got on board this summer, I thought Lenny really, really has something. This story is so unique and so wonderful. I immediately just said, I have to be involved in this because it's just a story that needs to get out.
And Bonnie is the example of when you go outside of yourself and somebody else believes in and is invested in it. The fact that it's on YouTube right now, it has come this far, is because this person believed in it and invested in it and had the skills to take where I had it as an idea, as a book, as a scripted TV series. And now there are visuals that have come about. It's because of Bonnie's involvement. And that's why I think the next layer of involvement could be any of you or the production team that's out there that will see our website and say, aha, I now have the vision of what this could be. So we're right in that stage of where we're hoping the bigger unfolding happens. And you're part of it. And we wanted to share that with you.
We're collaborators. And I feel like all of you out there are collaborating with us just by watching it, by, leaving comments and being a part of this.
Telling others too.
Exactly. And telling others, sharing the story. And, if, like I said, if you know anyone, definitely pass it on.
Just tell them in the name of JamieWakefield.com. Tell people, just go look at that website. That'll tell you everything you need to know. Exactly.
And we're so excited for what happens next. Yes. Honestly, I mean, we're letting this roll ourselves and trying not to be impatient with the process too, because we know it can take some time.
Yes.
And we've enjoyed this entire process from day one. This has been an absolute labor of love for us, putting this together and getting to this point. And I myself am super excited for what happens next.
I'm thrilled that the story of Tedd and Henry is already known in the world through the book and through the pilot series pilot already.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever else keeps happening just keeps to be icing and more icing and more icing on the bigger cake that I hope someday. Bigger cake.
We already have a big cake, but we just need a little bigger cake.
We went stack it up. You know?
Exactly.
The whole
Adding
six,
the layers.
the whole 6 layers, the whole 6 episodes.
Exactly.
Anyway, folks, we really appreciate you, and we wanted to take the time to just let you know where we are and how you're involved, and keep with us so that we can
hit the subscribe button on Ecclesia, tell your friends, pass it around, and let's see if we can, up our subscribers a little bit. I'm excited.
And let's get In the Name of Jamie Wakefield, the TV series, to become a full reality.
Yes.
We appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us now and listening to us.
Bye-bye.
Take care.